I was on Instagram, like Caroline with a scram head, and I was like, hey, who wants to climb in the valley with me? I want to go for an ascent of the nose or something. And then Jordan's like, I'm in, let's do it. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we're like, instant message or direct message. And then we wind up going for not the nose, but we do the steak salad day. So we go for this like super fast, like 4-hour ascent, like just a few pitches up the thing. We like cruise up to the top, you're like the hero shot, selfie galore. And then we're on the way down, and the old man, 48, falls, and I hit my iliac tuberosity, which is this part of the pelvis right there. Right, so I fall and I hit myself, bam! And Jordan laughs at me. He's like laughing and laughing. He's like, dude, I'm uncomfortable because you're so uncomfortable, so I have to laugh. But I'm like, you're a dick, dude. You should stop laughing at me right now, right? And I was like, man, you might get your comeuppance someday. The karmic boomerang, they swing around. And then the next day, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jordan Cannon right now. Get him up here. Make some noise, come on! Stand by, check folks.
Check. Oh, there we are. Okay, cool. Thanks, Timmy. Thanks, guys, for coming out. I know Cap's kind of been on everybody's mind with the rock fall lately, so just give me a show of hands. How many of you guys have climbed El Cap? All right, outside. Let me hear you. How many of you guys have climbed El Cap? All right, that's what I like to hear. Cool.
I know. He has best reputation.
All right, now, how many of you guys have climbed the nose? Good, all right, that's a good number. How many of you guys have climbed the nose in a day? Sweet, all right, getting after it, cool. Notice how I didn't raise my hand. Now, how many of you guys have taken 150-foot fall while climbing the nose in a day? That's what I thought. All right, well, good. Let's keep it that way because that shit really shouldn't happen. So as Timmy said, yeah, the day after, fortunately I did take a 150-foot fall, but I don't want to give you the idea that taking big whippers is rad and that speed climbing on cap, that's just like the risk you take, because it's not. I'm kind of just a dumb, ignorant kid who got a little too hasty, trying to speed climb and be rad, and it's as simple as that. There's a big difference between confidence and courage. Courage is simply the ability to not be ruled by fear. And everybody wants to be courageous, right? Especially in climbing. But you can't be courageous if you don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and the likely outcome. And if you do something without knowing it's dangerous and survive, that's not really being courageous. That's kind of just getting lucky. And that's exactly what happened to me. I got very, very lucky. So this is my friend Brad. Yeah. Brad likes to say that I went from pitch 4 to pitch 2 in 5 seconds. Which is more or less true, but I like to say that I fell a greater distance in feet than money I had in my bank account at the time, which is a little more accurate. This is a shot I took of Brad, I think, on top of Texas Flake. A few weeks before, we ended up wrapping shortly after this because his ankle was bothering him. So I had been on the nose before. This is also where we found out Honnold had just resold a free rider, so that was pretty cool too. I remember asking Brad a while back if he could, I remember asking Brad a while back if he could teach me some tactics to use while speed climbing on a cap. And in classic Brad fashion, he just said, climb fast and don't let go. So, sorry Brad, I let go, but thankfully I'm still here to talk to you guys about it tonight. Anyways, yeah, last spring I was climbing at the top of my game. Notice how I'm leading the hollow flake with a full rack of cams, even though you can't place a single piece on the entire pitch. That's a pro. You may have seen this photo. Tom Evans actually called me out on the El Cap report for posting, so that's pretty cool too. Yeah, so by the end of June, I had already spent 2 months in Yosemite, was climbing a bunch and feeling great, and I accomplished my main goal of sending freerider over 4 days. My friend Calvin, pictured there, he was jogging behind me in support.
Bring every pitch, right?
Bring every pitch.
Sweet.
Of course, Alex Honnold free soloed it the week before, so it's really not even that big of a deal anymore. Anyways, after that, I knew my trip was coming to an end, and the last thing I wanted to do before I left was climb the nose. I hadn't done it before, but I knew that the fitness and the technique was there. All I really needed was the right partner. So I asked my friend Mike from Search and Rescue to join me, and yeah, he was psyched, and we put our plan into action. Since it was the end of the season, we knew it was going to be really hot, so we started really early and planned to climb the first third of the route or so by headlamp. And when I got to the top of the third pitch, I pulled up all the rope, which was my first mistake, fixed the anchor, and then climbed about 50 feet off the belay with a huge loop of slack below me. And then as I was pulling on a fixed piece of gear, I just slipped, lost my balance, and pitched backwards all the way down the slab. Now, unlike Brad, who seems to break something every time he takes a bad fall, I'd like to think that I bounced down the slab and stuck it like a pro. I wasn't wearing a shirt because it was so hot, but I got pretty scraped up on the way down, as you can see. I had so much adrenaline running through me at first that, honestly, my first reaction was like, oh man, that really sucks. And I just instinctively started pulling up on the rope so I could keep climbing, just like you would if you fell off a sport climb. But then I eventually realized I completely circumcised 2 of my fingers, and blood was running all the way down my back. And my glasses and headlamp also fell off in the process. That obviously wasn't going to work either. The funniest part was when we started to climb, my friend Nate was leading up the first pitch, and he let us pass. And by the time we had effectively passed him, and there was no overlap between the 2 parties, was when I fell. And I fell all the way level with the belay as he was coming up to the top of pitch 2. And he was like, he made sure I was okay and everything at first. But after a while, when it was obvious that we were going to bail, he's like, hey Jordan, I don't mean to be a dick, but is it okay if we pass? Yeah, that was obviously no problem. So you can see how stoked I look in this photo. It kind of looks like I'm crying, but I think this was taken right after I woke up the day after. So yeah, anyways, it was pretty hard for me to process everything that happened at first. And for a while I was really convinced that I had broken a fixed piece of gear and that the fall really wasn't my fault. But then I kind of realized that it didn't really matter whether I broke a piece of gear or whether I just fell. I realized that it was just my ego trying to protect itself. And yeah, I made the mistake of not properly measuring the risk, and I almost got myself killed because of it. So it was pretty embarrassing coming off the nose after that. For a while, I was more concerned about what people would think about my mistake rather than just being happy that I, was still in one piece and didn't kill myself. But either way, I was still pretty disappointed that my season in Yosemite had to end this way. So once I got back to Bishop, a good friend of mine kind of sat me down and told me that I could either let this mistake make me a better climber or a worse climber. And for a while, after a couple weeks when I recovered and started climbing again, I noticed I was a lot more hesitant, and I was thinking it was going to make me a much worse climber than before. But I've had a lot of time to think about it since then, and I'm happy to say that I'm much more wise because of it. So one of the main things I learned is how to respect the process and not get too attached to the end goal, which can help you lose or cause you to lose focus in the moment and make a careless mistake like I did. So over the years climbing Yosemite, I kind of created this idea in my head that my first time climbing the nose had to be fast. But it really doesn't matter unless you're going for a speed record like Brad and Jim are. But by the time I was ready to give it a go in the spring, I was climbing more to prove it to my friends and my peers rather than to prove it to myself, which is one of the biggest mistakes you can make as a climber. So unless you want to end up like me, remember to be humble, wear a helmet, and never, ever let go. Thanks.
Hold on. Stay up there, Jordan. You're not going anywhere. And we bring up the house lights. Thank you. A round of applause for that glitter right now, because we love you, baby master and magician. And a big round of applause for Jordan Cannon right now. Come on. Okay. The question everybody has immediately is, how much money do you have currently in your bank account?
More than 100.
Okay, so he's ready to take another 99-foot fall then. Let's keep it like under what you have in your bank. Never get like $1,000 in your bank.
Right.
1,000-foot fall would be bad, dude.
That's
seriously. It's not gonna happen for you either, is it? Okay, I figured that out. Okay, so questions for Jordan. And then what I want to know as well, dude, did you see that sort of proverbial white light, like the tunnel, like you're falling through time and space? What was the process like?
No, the only light I saw was my partner's headlamp slowly going past me.
Wow, so you're like going down, going up. Okay, ding! Women's cosmetics, floor 2. So don't do that again, first of all. And then this whole kind of concept of that you may not be able to predict or create what's going to happen to you, but you can control how you react to it. So like this learning process, like basically the process of wisdom is screwing up, like taking this monster fall and then preventing it in the future. What has that process been like? How are you applying it still today?
Yeah, well, like I said, it's taken me a while to process it, but I just noticed I'm much more aware of likely scenarios whenever I go climbing. And yeah, I feel like I'm much better at assessing risk now and acting accordingly.
And I like that. That is well done. Seriously. There's a dear friend of mine, Jose Pineda. He's an individual from Venezuela. He was Venezuela's best climber at the time of his death. But I'll never forget what he told me before he died. He died in El Chico, rockfall took him out, etc. But we were down in Patagonia, and he said this phrase that I always repeat, and it's pay attention to change. As if you may be somewhere else, but it's really important to be here right now. Are you applying that, or was that a realization for you?
Yeah, definitely. The change I didn't realize at the end of the season was that I kind of got overconfident, and that was what let my guard down and wasn't paying as close attention as I should have.
And there is a rad dad by the name of Peter Croft. Anybody here Peter Croft? Make some noise for Peter Croft. We're sending that over the Sierras right now, Peter Croft. But Peter and Jordan know each other. They're both East Siders, Bishop, Mammoth, etc. And I heard through Huck, is Josh Huckleberry, is Josh Huckleberry, how do you say it? Where's Huck? Huckabee, are you here? Huckabee goes like this, he says, Mr. Huckabee said that what Peter said was, that Jordan needs to slow down, dude. And have you slow down, and don't listen to him anyway, keep going, I would say speed it up personally.